What's up, everybody, and welcome to And Action, episode 70. Man, it's good to be back. Mikey and I were away for a little while. We were both on our own separate Southern movie missions, but now we're back and we're here to chat with all of our good pals, our And Action family, and tell you a little bit about our time experiencing the great American South. Mike, how the hell are you? Good to see you, brother.
Good to be seen, Tommy. And I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. I'm hearing a little bit of technical stuff going on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Absolutely.
Okay,
Loud and
great.
clear, buddy.
Yeah, I had a nice trip. I went out to the Austin Revolution Film Festival in Austin, Texas, and I passed by the area that you were in. I passed through Biloxi Beach, Mississippi, which was interesting. On my way back, I went through Louisiana. And Tommy, half of the fun of a road trip is like the trip, not or the road, I guess, not necessarily where you're going, but where you go on your way to get there and back, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know what it is, buddy? I think, do you have like a messenger on or something? I'm hearing like casino
It beeps.
chimes.
Yeah, I'm hearing like a beep that says my U.S. port is going in and out. I just closed a window, so maybe that'll solve it.
Ah, well, that seemed to shut it down. It sounded like we just hit a jackpot on at a casino and a slot machine. Yeah, the adventure is sometimes greater than the destination, the traveling. But yeah, guys, it's been a really nice few weeks. Post strike life has been going really great. I'm happy to say it's kind of funny. We think back over the summer when we were having these shows and we were kind of banging our heads against the wall, wondering if and when we'll ever get back to work and how's this all going to play out. And here we are. And I got to say, I'm happy to report that the phones have been ringing. Productions are booming, and we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about. Uh, I just had a blast shooting down in Biloxi, Mississippi. That's where I was. That's where my travels took me. So we're going to be talking about Biloxi. We're going to be talking about this movie that I just made, and Mike's movie making adventure through the South was more of a film festival adventure. So we're going to get into Mike's story, and he did it by car, so he was doing the real old school see the country
Yeah.
out the car window kind of mission.
Yep. Yeah, Tommy. And it's interesting, buddy. Since our friend the pandemic came, I haven't taken an air flight since October of 2019. So everywhere that I've gone, including North Reading, Pennsylvania, to work on the Mick and the Trick that our buddy, what's his name, Dan Hunter, was involved with. I made a trip out there by car. I went up to New England several times by car. Various places in Florida. And Florida's a big state, so sometimes a road trip in Florida can take a whole day. But I've been more of a driving guy. Like I said, since October of 2019, I haven't taken an air flight. I think, Tommy, I got turned off by all those YouTube videos of people having fights in airplanes and people shoving a
Yeah,
mask on each other and
well,
stuff.
you know what, pal? That those videos are pretty crazy, but I did take a plane on my southern trip, and listen, here's the deal with air travel. It's gonna suck, no matter what. Like if you're taking a plane somewhere, unless you're incredibly wealthy and you have the ability to fly either, maybe first class or maybe even beyond first class private jets, flight sucks. Even if you are in first class, I've traveled first class many times, and like it's still a pain in the ass. You still have your layovers to deal with. You still got to deal with all the other bullshit getting through TSA. So, um, I'm at a new point in my life when if I know I've got to travel somewhere on a plane, I almost just take that day and like put a big X through it. It's almost like that day never happened. It's a travel day, and you just lean into it. But yeah, Mike, couple of the fun things to chat about as we get into our exploration of the South. Uh, Stephen E here. What's up, Stephen E?
Oh,
Episode
thanks,
70.
Stephen.
We're doing our
Oh,
episode 70 thing. Um, Thank you for saying welcome back, Stephen. It's good to see you here, brother. Stephen says, had any Southern dishes, Tommy? Oh, yes, I sure did. Let me tell you, the food in the South is no joke. everywhere I went, from a little hole in the wall diner to upscale fine dining kind of restaurant, unbelievable food. Just a lot of exciting kind of dishes that I normally wouldn't mess with. Obviously, chicken and waffles is where it's at down south. Just a lot of fun, man. Fun to try the different cuisines. I found out that a po' boy, spelled Poboy, is really just a sandwich. You'd see on the menu all these, like, be like a steak po' boy or fried chicken po' boy. You'd be like, what the fuck is a po' boy? And then someone casually was just like, oh, it's just a sandwich. It's just another way to say sandwich. It's like a Louisiana term that's kind of spread out throughout the South. But you learn something every day. I learned what a po' boy was really quickly.
Shrimp
But
is a
yeah,
big one for po' boy. Shrimp po' boy is pretty common.
yeah, lots of seafood dishes, in the South there, especially if you're in, I was in Mississippi, if you're in Alabama, if you're in Louisiana, you're right on the Gulf of Mexico there. So a lot of great, great fresh seafood coming in all the time. And I'm not even a big fish guy, but even I had to try some of it while I was down there. So, um, yeah, man, the food is not to disappoint down south. And Mike, I know that, and action listeners might not know this, but Mike did grow up technically a Southerner. He's from Virginia. He may not like to tell you about his past to keep his sort of mystique intact, but Mike grew up in Virginia, which last time I checked, that's very much part of the South. And Mike, you'll
Well,
probably be able to weigh in on what I'm about to say, where
sure.
my favorite part about the South is just everyone's attitude and disposition. People are definitely a little nicer down south. It's what they say is true. Southern charm is a real thing. And what I mean by that is, don't get it twisted. It's not like everybody wants to do a stop and chat, and they're not going to like stop and have a full conversation with you. But if you see someone in a kind of one-on-one setting, like you're in a hallway and they're in a hallway, and you make eye contact, they're going to look at you, they're going to nod, and they're going to say, "How are you? How you doing? Hello." Like they're going to say hello to you. I'm going to use the word acknowledge your existence. I think that's a little bit of the little friendly Southern flair there. And listen, I don't want to generalize. I'm sure there's assholes everywhere. So I'm sure
Sure.
there's I'm not saying the entire South is wonderful and friendly, but in my experience, everyone was very friendly and everyone was kind of down to give you a minute, as they say, just to say hello. So I like the attitudes, I like the vibes. It was a great time down south. Good people.
Well, Tommy, let me clarify. I was born and raised in what they call Northern Virginia, and we always like to distinguish that the northern part of this state, which is kind of the Washington D.C. suburb, we don't like to think of ourselves as Southerners. However, when I went to college briefly in Greensboro, North Carolina, I felt like I had moved to the South. And it's interesting the nuances there, because in Greensboro, Tommy, which is only one state over from Virginia, I really felt like I was in a different type of part of the world. And and I'll tell you this, Tommy, even I grew up in a place called Burke, Virginia, part of Fairfax County. We would actually make fun of the kids or the people in Manassas, which is one town over, and think that they were rednecks. And it's just weird how, people are so territorial in their thinking sometimes. And but moving forth in the conversation, I do agree with you that in the South, I think the big difference, Tommy, is in the South, people are friendlier to strangers or casual acquaintances. If you go into a post office, if you go into a gas station, you're more likely to have a friendly little interaction with a stranger. In New England, Rhode Island, from my experience, especially in parts of Connecticut, Massachusetts, it almost
Definitely
felt
New
like
York. Definitely New
definitely.
York.
Yep, New York. Maybe not Albany or Western New York, but definitely closer to New York City. There was a certain accepted, almost encouraged rudeness if you're dealing with someone that you're not friends with. And to me, Tommy, that made it difficult because a lot of times I'd be dealing with the public or whatever, and in New England, you do feel like people don't warm up to you unless you've known them for 15 years. And I find that that's the difference, Tommy, is how people in the southern states treat casual acquaintances or strangers. It's typically more
Well, you
friendly
know
than
what
in the
they say, brother. What they like to say down south: a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. So There's a lot of that kind of attitude down there. And yeah, I think it's just, there's that old phrase like, who we give time to. They're just willing to give you a little bit more time down there. I think we're moving a little faster. And I don't mean that in a good way. We move so fast up here in the north, especially the northeast, that just like you said, it's like if you're a stranger, it's kind of like, well, what the fuck do I need to say hi to you for? Like you're not on my team of life. You're not my life team. You're just one of the other millions of people up here. Seems just a little more quiet and calm and a better pace of life down there.
Let
One
me
thing.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
Well,
go ahead, bud.
I'll give a flip side to that, Tommy, which I've noticed. For instance, in the South, I can give you an exact example. I was going to go see a stage play, on a Friday night, and I made a quick stopover to a convenience store, thinking, hey, I just want to get a pack of gum, to enjoy this play with. A pack of gum would really do me well here. And I pull over, and I've got very few minutes to spare, and the person in line in front of me is having like the daily gossip session with the cashier, and the cashier is paying really no mind to me or the other people in line, and just kind of, oh, let's just mosey on and have our little conversation. So my point is, I've noticed in the South, you can't really be in a hurry in the South. You can't say, I've got 15 minutes to get to some place. Let me pull over to the gas station, get my pack of gum, my bottled water. You really have to like not do that, because you can't guarantee that a little side trip will be short, because other people might have that Southern hospitality on overdrive, causing you to miss your appointment. So that's the downside to that type
Well,
of thing.
that's why you just got to walk into a store and say, "Everybody, stop! I need some fucking gum right now." Wouldn't that be
Stop
weird?
your
If you
Southern bullshit. I need my
Can you
gum.
imagine? What would the people say? They would think they're being like robbed, and
Yes.
they'd put their hands up and just give you the gum.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true, Mike. But you know what? In a weird way, I think I'd prefer the little human interactions than the whole robotic lifestyle that we're used to up here. But let's talk about in terms of movie making, because that's what this show's about. It hasn't been too long, but it's been a few weeks since we've been on. So if you're a new listener and you're just checking this out, Mikey and I like to get on here once a week, every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and we talk for an hour. It's not too crazy of a thing. We keep it to an hour, and we just we pick our movie topics and we dive in. This week our movie topic is what it's like to make movies down south. And I'll tell you something, and I don't want to say anything that will alienate me from my northern friends or any of the movie crews that I've worked with in the north. But one of the things that I've noticed uh, on this movie about southern movie crews as opposed to what I've seen with my experience in the northern movie crews is there's a little more willingness to work together from department to department. Meaning, I've made a lot of movies primarily up here. I've made a couple movies in LA. I've made a couple movies, elsewhere. But for the most part, the majority of my movies have been in the Northeast. And there is this level of departmental kind of focus where, okay, if I'm in the art department, I'm worried about only things in the art department. I'm not going to help out Grip and Electric. I'm not going to help out the camera team. I'm kind of just worrying about what I got to do. And that's not a bad thing. A lot of times there's a reason why departments stick in their departments. It's so that there's no overlapping. It's so that everybody can stay focused on one task, and all these, thousands of little tasks that we need to get done. However, there do come times when everybody knows you got to bend the rules a little bit. When you're in a tough situation and you're up against the clock and you're facing a very difficult production setup, whatever it may be, yeah, sometimes the art department has to do something to lend a hand to camera to make their lives easier. Sometimes camera has to do something to help out G&E, vice versa. I found that everyone in this Southern movie crew that I was working on, or I should say on the Southern movie crew, they were all willing to kind of blur the departmental responsibility lines and really just focus on the ultimate goal, which is like getting the shot, whatever shot it might be. So I did find that these Southern crews work really well as a team. There's a lot of kind of unity, and I thought that was really cool to see, because a lot of times you go on a movie set and you got to understand it's different for me, right? I can't go by my guide because I'm the director. Like this movie means everything to me. Like every movie that I make means so much to me, and it's gonna be with me for so long. Like I'm gonna shepherd it through post production. I'm gonna be there to, market the movie and take part in all that. I'm with this thing for almost, 6 months to a year, sometimes more. Most crew people, they get a job, they show up on the movie set, they work there 4, 5, 6 weeks or less, and then they're fucking gone, man. They're not even gonna think about that movie again until it comes out. Whereas, on this movie, I felt as though there was that element of, "No, we do care about this. Yeah, this is just a job, and we're gonna move on to another one as soon as it's over, but while we're on this one, we wanna win," you know? So there was a real kinda, competitive in, like, a positive way, sense to this crew. We're like, every day we had a really big challenge, and every day they wanted to win, and they wanted to kinda best that challenge and get their shit in, and that's what we did. It wasn't a long shoot. We shot for 14 days, and we did some amazing mountain moving in that short period of time.
Tommy, it sounds what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you feel like this Southern crew was maybe a little bit more emotionally invested in the work. Is that what you're getting at?
I think they were more emotionally invested in each other, if that makes sense, and not in a weird way, but just like, almost like how on a team, it's like, use a football reference. It's like, well, the offensive linemen, they're gonna like lay themselves out to knock down the guy directly in front of them, and they're gonna end up on the ground and they might get banged up, but they know that the guy behind them is gonna move forward with the ball and maybe score. So it's kind of like there's a little more like sacrifice, like willing to like lay yourself out to get the job done. And I don't mean that in a dangerous way. It's not like we were doing anything unsafe. I just mean like I saw a little bit more of that extra effort that I hadn't really seen a whole lot in the past, and I liked seeing that, Mike. It's nice to see.
Well, Tommy, it's interesting to hear you go into this, and I don't want to, breach your confidentiality with your private views on life, but uh, the whole time I've known you, you've been such a guy that really enjoys the New England winters and the seasons and even the cold. You're I think maybe the only person I know that loves the New England winter, man. So it sounds to me like in this conversation, I don't know if you're thinking about moving south at some point in your life, or you're just sharing with us that you enjoy the time that you're there.
No, no, no. Don't get it twisted, buddy. I'm a
Well, that's
Rhode
why I'm asking.
Islander through and through. Here's the deal. It's just that, as a filmmaker, you have an ability to tell stories in all these different great places. And I think that any filmmaker who just tells stories in one spot is
Sure.
doing themselves an injustice. You know what I mean? Like, I love making movies in Rhode Island, and I hope I get to make a bunch of movies until my movie making days are done here. But at the same time, leaving Rhode Island gives me the ability to tell completely different stories with a completely different backdrop, completely different locations, different people, different culture that kind of seeps into the film. That's what I love about making films. A film is a living organism. It really is. And the location that you shoot in is a part of that living organism. And the kind of the features of that location can't help but kind of seep into the piece of art that you're working on. So that being said, if you're making movies just in one spot over and over again, you're probably going to continue to replicate a very similar looking piece. Whereas if you know, take your skill set and go elsewhere, well, now you're gonna have a totally different movie, and to me as an artist, that's exciting. I mean, nobody wants to paint the same goddamn painting over and over again, unless you're Rothko. Rothko's paintings are all very similar, and they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Uh, there are very few artists that can get away with that, where it's just like, "I'm gonna do the same thing over and over again." So, going down south and getting a chance to kinda, as they say in the wrestling business, learn a new hold somewhere else. It was just a great experience, and I would love to make more movies down south. Obviously, we didn't really talk about this yet, but the weather's gorgeous down south. It's got almost a Los Angeles kind of a vibe. It's a little more humid, but we went down south in a cold snap. It was very cold when we went down there, and still, it was kind of funny. It's like 50s during the day. Maybe it gets up to 60, and all the locals are like, "Oh, it's freezing down here," and I'm like coming fresh off of January in Rhode Island, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's beautiful. I got a sweatshirt on. I'm outside like in January. This is amazing." So, it's all about kind of perspective. So to me, between the weather, the food, and just the kind of work ethic and the kind of team mentality that's in a lot of the crew people down there that I've experienced, I love it, man. You'll find me down there again for sure.
Well, that's great, Tommy. And that's one thing you said is perspective. And I've found with the weather here, same thing, buddy. To me, it's Christmas Day, and I'm wearing t-shirt and shorts, and it's like January, February, December, and I'm outside swimming in the unheated pool, and the people here think I'm nuts. But there's a begrudging respect that I'm doing that, because I have that comparison. Like, hey, if I was in New England right now, I'd be 20 degrees, bundled up inside. It would be dark at 4:30 in the afternoon, and there is a winter in the South. It's just so much more mild. And if you've had the years of New England life that I've had and that Tommy's had, when you're down here, you do appreciate the weather, especially in these traditional long New England months. Yeah, man, I started my drive, Tommy, to Austin, Texas, right after the Super Bowl, and that was an experience. I watched the Super Bowl with friends, my former roommates actually, and then I started driving, and I got as far as, oh God, I think I drove over. I did drive overnight. I stopped at several rest stops. Another regional difference, Tommy, is in the states of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and I guess Texas. They all have security guards at the overnight rest stops, which is
Well, that's
interesting.
good.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, which you have very similar rest stops in Massachusetts, not so much in Rhode Island, but they don't have those security guards, which I think is
Well, let's
kind of a
face it. Let's stop and have a 30-second sidebar about rest stops.
sure.
Now, I'm a grown man, not to be sexist, because men can get kidnapped as easily as women, but I'm a grown man, and I've stopped at a couple rest stops in the middle of the night, and you're kind of like sketched out. You're like, there's nobody around. Who's in this bathroom right now? It can be a scary place. So I think that's great that they have security guards in the rest stops because, I mean, they can be very creepy places to stop into. I'd almost rather piss on the side of the road than go to a fucking rest stop.
The rest stops in the South, brother, at least the panhandle type of trip that I took, like I said, you see the security guard. He's got his little truck. He's a visible I say he because the ones that I saw were all men. And at the first rest stop, buddy, I got to give a shout out to my friend Filmina. She made me tons of food for my first night at my rest stop after the Super Bowl. And I pull over and I've got like this big plate. I'm literally sitting at a picnic table, and the rest stop security guy kind of waves at me and didn't come over and question me or bother me. He just gave me a friendly wave, like you said about that hospitality. And I believe, buddy, the first time I stopped on that first trip to Texas was Biloxi Beach, Mississippi, and I saw the actual Biloxi Beach, and it made me think of Beach Blast '92 and WCW days. Ricky Steamboat versus
Oh
Rick
boy.
Rude, and and I took a dip in the pool outside, and they were kind of surprised I was doing that, but they didn't bother me. I also discovered, Tommy, and I know you noticed this as well, that for me, the one day that I was in the Biloxi Beach area, smoking is allowed in restaurants, and I went to
Yeah.
this bar during the daytime that I looked on my little Yelp reviews, and I found myself at some place. The experience was okay. I mean, I don't think it was like a 5-star dining experience, but when I got in there, brother, I look around and I see, what's this thing? These little black circles. Oh my God, that's an ashtray. And they're all the same. And every single table had an ashtray, and every single spot at the bar had an ashtray. And I guess, maybe I don't like, cigarette smoking. I don't mind if other people do it. I just don't like to breathe it when I'm eating. My feeling was, man, I got to get the hell out of here. But then I realized, man, I got to get back on the road, so I'm just going to eat here. And sure enough, Tommy, I order, and then at the end of the bar, some dude just finishes his meal and he starts smoking his cigarette, and then I kind of have to move away. And but I'm telling you, man, like that type of thing,
Well, hey, man,
it's
it's
shocking in a
America.
way.
It's America, baby. They believe in their liberties down there, and I can't knock them for that. Listen, smoking is a touchy subject. We all know it's very bad for you physically, but hey, that's the way their culture rolls, and there is a lot of cigarette smoking down there. It's kind of funny. I don't smoke cigarettes on the reg anymore, but once in a while I'll fall off the wagon and have one, particularly in a situation like that. It's kind of funny. Like I hadn't smoked in the longest time, but I'm down south and I see people cranking butts in a restaurant. I had to smoke one just for a novelty. I really had to fire one up. Let me get one of those. And I had to crank one up and smoke one just because I'm like, this is so fucking weird. I'm ripping a butt in a restaurant with like other people and nobody's looking at me like I'm, like up north. Let me tell you something for the smokers. And again, I'm speaking from a former smoker's experience. But up here, if you have a cigarette in your hand, even if you're outside,
Right.
some people look at you like you've got a fucking loaded pistol in your hand. It's that crazy. They look at you like, oh, like, and it's like, all right, look, I know it's not good for you, but it's like this is my choice as an American to smoke this fucking cigarette here. I'm not infringing on your rights. So it is kind of fun in that sense. And I did have a couple conversations with the others, some of the like real deal smokers on my crew, and they were like, yeah, it's kind of nice down here because like people don't look at you in this judgmental way. Again, I'm not trying to turn this show into a bleeding heart smokers campaign, but it's true. Like, up here, like smokers get looked at like they're pieces of shit, whereas down south it's kind of like, yeah, well, everybody smokes. So it is kind of just culturally a bit of a shock. But let's get into some of our and action folks here and say what's up to some people who came out, showing up and showing out on our 70th episode, which is pretty incredible, Mike, that we've sat here 70 fucking times
Well, I
talking
want to
about
say
movies and
thanks
fun.
thanks to you, Tommy, for promoting the show and setting up all the shows. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. And we have a very loyal core fan base. And we hope that, and we've asked them a few times and they've always come through when we do ask. But if you find folks, Stephen E., Kim Kaling, Ariana, if you guys want to copy and paste that URL at your convenience, for either this episode or other episodes. One thing that I've done, Tommy, a few times is, especially when we have episodes like this with kind of a general topic of Southern times, or when we do something like screenwriting episodes or something with a very kind of multifaceted topic that applies to a lot of people, I'll find specific Facebook groups with that type of facet of the industry to share the particular shows in. And
Yeah.
I've discovered that those type of sharings, when it's, yeah, and not to pick on people, but when you just do like the share button and you don't put a little blurb of like explanation of why you're sharing this show, those types of shares don't get as many clicks. When you actually take the time to write a personal sentence along with
Of
the
course.
URL and explain it, well, people don't do that a lot, and so, and for me, buddy, sometimes I write the personal, little sentence or two, but then I copy and paste that along with the URL so I don't have to sit on the computer for hours at a time. But the point is, just personalize the share. It gets more people. And here's our buddy Laza. I'm not sure if Brisbane, Queensland, Australia is in the southern part of Australia, but
Well,
Laza's excited because they just had a big WWE show in Perth. So I'm glad that Laza's here as well.
awesome. Let's go down the list, everybody. Kim, what's up? It's good to see you. We're glad to be back. Stephen E., Po' Boy, he knows all about the Po' Boys.
Oh,
Chicken
yeah.
and waffles. Next time you hit New York, hit up Melba's in Harlem. Her chicken and waffles is slamming. I'll have to check that out. I'm a big fan now. I never had chicken and waffles until I was down there. Ariana, what's up, Ariana? I'm gonna be seeing Ariana a little bit later. We got a little screenplay we're working on. We're gonna get in the holiday spirit. And I know it seems like we're maybe a little early, maybe a little late for Christmas, but Christmas screenplays are a year-long thing. God damn it. Greensboro have cousins there, home of the Greensboro Coliseum. which is going to be the home of, I believe, Sting's last match coming up for you wrestling fans. Hello, Ariana. Hello, Kim. Hey, Steven. I love to see everybody building this community here on And Action. Scott, what's up, brother? Hello again, guys. Good to be back. It's good to see you. Well, put Tommy in North Carolina. My family got 1 inch of snow and they closed the schools. It's kind of funny, man. It does snow down there maybe once in a great, great while. Like you said, maybe once a year, maybe once every other year. And everybody who told me, they were like, no, you don't understand. A dusting of snow shuts the whole fucking state down. Because the reality is, it's kind of funny, guys. They literally don't have the things that we have up here to remove snow. Like, they have very few plows. Like, there are no, like up in Rhode Island, we've got city plows, state plow, city workers. They don't have that shit. They don't have salters. They don't have sand machines. So if it snows, they're kind of like, all right, well, guess we just wait for this to go ahead and melt. And they just wait and the shit melts eventually. Scott, side note, I'm in New England for the first time next month. Looking forward to it. All right, congratulations. Tell us what part of New England you're going to and what brings you to the great New England states. Awesome, Scott. All right, WCW Blast from the Beach. Kim saying what's up to everybody. And how could we forget our dear friend Laza? What's up, brother? Always good to see you. I hope things have been going nice for you down in Australia. Yeah, man, things have been popping in Perth. Ole Anderson did pass away, so rest in peace to wrestler Ole Anderson, founding father of the Four Horsemen. Oh, sweet. Speaking of wrestling, Scott's going to Boston for a wrestling show. Are you going to the big AEW show in Boston? That's what he must be going to. There's a rumor that Miss Monet, Mercedes Monet, might be appearing there, and I know Scott's a big fan, so maybe that's what brings Scott to Boston. I don't know. There's rumors she's going to be on that show. All right, so yeah, getting back into it. And Scott says that is the one. See, I knew it. I knew it, Scott. That's going to be an awesome show, brother.
Tommy, you made a film which featured Mercedes Monet, so that's a little tie-in for you to plug that one.
Well, Scott knows all about it, man. Scott's a really big fan of the collective. He's made some really cool Mercedes Monet artwork. So now we know he's a real deal fan because he's making the trek all the way from the UK to go see this show in Boston. So I think that's pretty awesome. Okay, so guys, making movies down south, it was really a great experience. I got a chance to work with a whole new producing team. Shout out to Theo Rossi. Shout out to Demetrius Steer. Theo Rossi brought me on this project a long time ago. We made a movie called Vault back in, I don't know, I think it was I think we shot it 6 or 7 years ago now. Made a movie named Vault, and Theo and I, really close. We became really good buddies on that movie. And then as time does sometimes, time separates people a little bit. We went our separate ways kind of creatively. He went and made a bunch of great films and television shows. I went and made a bunch of other movies and worked on a lot of projects. And we would stay in touch once in a while, but kind of casually. And then one day out of the blue, literally a year ago around this time, I got a call from Theo, and it was, I hadn't talked to him in a while. And he was just like, hey, man, I've got a concept that I want to talk to you about. Would love to basically get this movie off the ground with you and have you direct it. I'm working with a really great producer. He was mentioning Demetrius at the time. And Demetrius has a plan to make a bunch of these kind of crime drama / action movies for Tubi, directly through Tubi, basically like our version of it's a studio movie. And I would love to get you involved. And there's no reason why we couldn't rattle out a bunch of these movies, but it's all about getting that first one done so that we can set the tone and create a bit of a business model for like, hey, look, this is what we can do on this budget for you. By you, I mean Tubi. So basically, it's been a year in the making, Theo and I worked on the script really hard and we put it together. It's the first time we co-wrote something together, which is really cool. And man, we just had so much fun. Theo is like the big brother I never had and always kind of wanted. We've got that kind of back and forth in the sense that just a lot of laughing, a lot of fun, a lot of ball busting, a lot of he cracks on me really hard, I crack on him. Uh, we just keep it very light, but we get our work done. And we had a little bump in the road with the strike. We all know about that. We don't need to relive that. But this movie was supposed to be shot. This movie that I just got back from down in Mississippi, this movie was supposed to be shot and ready to go back in June. And then, of course, we all know what happened. So for me to go down there and to make this film and to really, I mean, I don't want to say I hit a home run, but man, I fucking cleared the bases on this movie. Like I at least got a double with the bases loaded and created a massive rally. I mean, I feel really good about everything that we shot, and I can say with no ego whatsoever that this is going to be my best movie ever. There's no question about it. And again, that's not a comparative thing. That's not a tit for tat. That's not a well this versus this or this versus that. It's the facts. Like if I'm not getting better every time out of the gate, well, what the fuck am I even doing here? Like
Well, yeah, but
why do I even make movies?
it's not a comparison, Tom, because it's just an evolution, and as you gain more experience and you gain more contacts, and you've directed 10 or 12 feature films at this point, so why wouldn't you expect that this film is the best one if it's the most recent? And also, you had some great collaborators like Theo Rossi. I saw him in a film that he did with was it Aubrey Plaza or Audrey Plaza? I always get her name mixed up, but
Aubrey, yeah.
Aubrey and him, basically he was the male lead, she was the female lead in this movie I saw in the theaters a year or two ago.
Emily the
And
Criminal, it's called.
yes, and Tommy, another thing just to clarify, with your sentence structure at the beginning, it wasn't that you and Theo had a bump in the road, it was that the whole business had some big
Yeah. Well, the
bumps in
strike
the road.
happened.
Yeah, the strikes. Yeah, so just to clarify, um,
Yeah,
everybody had
no.
those bumps. Yeah.
There was no beef between me and Theo. It was just we literally couldn't make the movie because we were in the midst of a strike. But yeah, it just feels really good, man. And listen, I don't want to get too much into the movie itself because we're gonna do a whole episode on this movie. And frankly, we don't even have a title yet for this name. Again, this
That was
movie is going out through Tubi. They're the studio that's putting the movie out. We have a couple names kicking around, but ultimately Tubi's gonna choose the name that they want to go with. And I'm just really excited. It feels like a really big win for me because again, there were some times back during the strike when I wasn't sure if this movie was ever going to happen, and I had worked so fucking hard on the script. Theo and I have put so many hours and so many calls. And here's the thing, man. Like Theo lives in Austin, Texas. I live in Cranston, Rhode Island. So for us to write together, it's not as simple as being like, "Hey, bud, you got an hour? I'm going to come by and we'll work on some stuff." It's a thing, we got time zones to battle. He's an hour behind me, I'm an hour ahead. So every time we write, it's like a methodical effort to be like, all right, we're breaking off the couple hours that we need. Let's jump on a call, let's jump on a Zoom, let's jump on a FaceTime, whatever it is. And we just get our work done kind of, like that. So after putting in all that work and effort and maybe finding out shit, this movie might not happen because there's a lot to the backstory. I don't even want to get into all the little details, but long story short, there had been so much time between February of last year when we started writing the script, and then the strike came 6 to 8 months later. Tubi was all about this movie. They really wanted it. And then there had been some regime changes, like any major corporation, new people come and go. And now suddenly the new people that were there, they weren't the same people that acquired the script in the beginning. So then you start worrying and wondering, and it's like, ooh, is this regime change going to result in them maybe reassessing their properties and maybe saying, yeah, you know what, this Tom DiNucci, Theo Rossi script, let's put that on the back burner because I want to maybe push some of my own products or push content that I acquired personally. And by I mean these new people that came into the company. So it was a little touch and go, and I was concerned about those things, and I can't help it because, you know, I try to stay optimistic. I tell people I'm a hopeless optimist, but at the end of the day, like I always am looking for like where's the pitfall? Where's the other shoe that might potentially drop? And I think that's just a defense mechanism so that I'm always trying to stay like one step ahead of the big linchpin that's going to drop down. Um, but for me, this one was like touch and go, and I wasn't sure. And knowing that like everything kind of worked out, yeah, the strike happened, but we were still able to, once it ended, pretty much within a couple of months, we're back in action, and that felt really good. And I'm just really proud of this whole team that I got to work with, and to see your work go from like on life support to actually happening. It's a really great thing, and we're out of the woods and we're in the editing room now. So all good things for the movie to be soon named.
Well, knock on flesh, buddy. And I think when you were talking, Tommy, it just kind of reinforces to me when people ask, why these strikes and how is the strike going to affect people. What you just shared, buddy, is a real life experience of we have this project. It has momentum. But not you personally, but if time pauses on us, momentum pauses because of a strike, and there's these regime changes, like you said, in every business. If a new football coach takes over the team, a lot of times his first order of business
New
is to get a
players, new coaches.
new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and it's kind of to be expected, and it's just human nature that if you come into a position, you want the people that you trust or the projects that you believe in to be promoted. And I'm really glad, Tommy, for you and Theo and everyone involved that this project uh, did stay on the track, so to speak. It got produced and it got made, and now, like you said, and well, you haven't said this, but the one of the toughest aspects of filmmaking is editing. I think we, as human beings in general, sometimes overlook the editing. But to me, Tommy, editing is a make it or break it for a film.
Oh, there's no question, and that's one aspect of the business that I still am trying to learn, and I learn every day more and more about editing and how to cut a movie and how to cut a scene so that it's exciting, that it connects with the audience, that the audience isn't, every filmmaker's fear is this. Watching the movie and then a scene where this dialogue comes on, and then we see this. The
From the
second I
audience.
see that, I'm like, we didn't do our jobs. Because here's the deal: if a movie's good enough, and there have been plenty of them that I've seen, where like I don't even want to look at my fucking phone. But if the movie starts to drag and the movie starts to, it's a lot of talking. I'm not excited. That phone's gonna come out, and the second that phone comes out, you kind of lost the audience. Yeah, people are so used to doing 8 things at once these days. But if you even have the, inkling to take your fucking phone out, you're clearly not engaged in what we're doing. So we're not doing our jobs right. So the editing room to me is really where that's kind of my metric. Like, can someone watch this without taking their fucking phone out and being distracted? Um, so I'm very much still learning a lot about that process, and we'll see. I'm working with a new editor on this movie, and we're gonna start that this week, like literally this week. I've had a couple of like introductory sessions. I've had some sessions where I've gone through the footage and I've made my own personal notes. But now this week we're gonna meet up, and everyone, you heard it here for the first time on And Action. And obviously everything's subject to change in this crazy movie world, but I'm being told now that this movie will be released as early as the beginning of June.
Wow.
So here we are in, end of February. We're just a few weeks away from spring kicking off, and by June this movie very well could be, being streamed up on Tubi. So we got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to start doing it. So
Well,
big
cool, man.
editing sessions coming up, buddy.
And just real quick on that edit session, is that in person or via Zoom or some type of stuff
No,
like that?
that's gonna be all via Zoom. It's kind of a crazy thing. The business has changed so much. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I've been doing this forever, but in the 10 years or so that I've been directing films, the business has just changed so much to where, it used to be like without saying, like, all right, you're going to go have editing sessions with the editor physically. You're going to
Yeah.
fly to wherever and spend 2 or 3 weeks, and every day you go into the editing room. That shit's over now, man. Like with the advent of Zoom, my movie, The Collective, this was probably the first time I did it like this, but on The Collective, we cut that whole movie via Zoom. And I was just on a Zoom session, and I've got my laptop and I've got my big TV monitor, and I had the Zoom going on one screen, and the editor would share his screen so that I could see his actual editing screen in the software on my big TV. So I'm basically in the editing room with him, and I'm able to be like, nope, make the cut right there. Nope, back that up, trim this, trim that, add this. I can see it all in real time via Zoom. So another sign of the times, like, years ago, I would have been having to get on a plane and go to LA and sit with this guy, which I know that would have been a real terrible thing to have to go to LA in the beginning of March. But, it is nice that I'm able to do it from home. I can edit with him. We can have our sessions, and I can continue to work on the 3 or 4 other projects that I've got going at any given time here at home. So we're gonna start cranking really soon, Mike. But I can't wait for that process. I can't wait to fill you all in on it, and I'm really excited because for the first time in a long time, I can talk about a movie that I just made, and it's kind of gonna like come out soon. It's not one of these things where I'm so used to like
Right.
I make a movie and then who knows? Like it could literally be 2 fucking years before the movie actually is released. I've had movies that, Vault took almost 2 years to come out. Johnny and Clyde took almost 2 years to come out. So I've had movies like on the shelf for a while. It's nice that I'm gonna be cranking this one out, and then literally in a few months it's gonna be airing. So pretty stoked about that, Mikey.
That's awesome, buddy. And you mentioned that your friend and collaborator Theo Rossi lives in Austin, Texas. Well, that's where I went for this film festival, Austin Revolution Film Festival, and interesting experience, buddy. Man, sometimes it's the mood of things that you go into, and I might have been in a bit of a sour mood when I went out to Austin. A friend of mine had just passed away during my road trip. And so I kind of went there with that in my system, and thinking about my buddy and his family and all that. And when I get to Austin, Texas, Tommy, and I do enjoy the city of Austin, but this city is overpopulated at this point. And for most of my adult life, in Movie Maker magazine and other websites, what's the cool cities in the U.S. of A. Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Yeah,
And
no, totally.
so,
Austin is right up there with Las Vegas as one of the fastest growing cities in the country.
well, folks, Austin has grown. So stop coming because it's grown too much. And I think I don't want to speak for Austiners, but I'm going to. I stayed in an Airbnb with this nice lady, Bethany, and we had a brief conversation. And I just shared with her. I said, "Wow, this is a really tough town to drive in because you'd have to experience it. But like when you take an exit in Austin, it's like you're basically going on a 40-mile-an-hour U-turn. Like the exits are so sharp. And when you come into like a major road, even from a suburban area, it's like boom, you're in like this fast flying highway thing. It's hard to explain, but if you experience it, if anyone's been to Austin, Texas recently, and bro, they have so many people have said for so many years that Austin, Texas is the cool Richard Linklater, slacker, before sunset town to be in, Daisy Confused, all this great stuff about Austin. So many people have come in. Now there's, I think, in my opinion, at least too many people, and the city doesn't have the infrastructure, basically the road system. It doesn't have the infrastructure to either build more roads or more lanes, and it doesn't really, it can't support all those
So it
people.
sounds like Austin has outgrown itself a little bit.
Its cup has runneth over. So I mean, I
Mm.
think if people, and someone I was talking to, maybe it was you, Tommy, knew someone who lived 15 or 20 minutes outside of Austin, I would say that that's the way to go. Like be in the vicinity. I will say this though, on a positive note, they did have a series of coffee houses. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was a coffee house that had 3 locations in Austin, 24/7 coffee house.
Wow.
So I made a special trip. I think on the Saturday night that I was there, I wanted to see this phenomena. I get in, I'm all excited. Oh my god, a 24/7 coffee house. I wasn't even there that late, maybe midnight. And I get in there, bro, and it's 85% of the people seem to be college kids on their laptops with their headphones in, ignoring each other and working on whatever. And good for them that they're doing their schoolwork, I assume, or whatever they're doing. But it
Well, what'd
wasn't
you
as
expect? Did you expect them to have a party? Did you think it was
I
a
thought it might
nightclub
be
you
a
were going to?
little.
It's a
I
coffee
thought it might
shop.
be a little social. I mean, look, yeah, I get it. Some people are going to be tuning into their own thing, but I thought there might be some level of interaction with human beings. But it was everybody was in the communal space, but at the same time, a gathering of individuals. You know, everyone was kind of just plugged in, literally, to their laptop with
Yeah.
the headphones and everything. And but who knows? Maybe that was just the one time I was there. But I did respect the fact that for a city that's got all these people, they've figured out that a good way to kind of balance things is to have 24/7 locations. And if they're making money doing that, and hey, man, I'm sure that there's somebody who wants to get a coffee or a snack at 4 o'clock in the morning and put some money into these venues. So I give them that, bro. But my overall feeling of Austin was great city, but like you said, it's outgrown itself, and I don't know if there's
But
any
let me ask
cure.
you this, Mike, because again, just to tie it all back in, and we'll wrap things up real soon as we approach the hour mark. Overall, in a couple sentences, tell us about the film festival itself. Like, how were the movies? How did your movie do?
Yeah, Austin Revolution. This will be the penultimate, meaning the second to last Austin Revolution Film Festival. They're going to shut it down after 2025, and they're going to concentrate on their sister festival, the San Angelo Revolution Film Festival. There was a little bit of a sadness because a lot of the people, the filmmakers that go to this one in Austin, have gone every year for several years. A lot of people were telling stories. They had an award ceremony, Tommy, where some of the award winners were saying they weren't even a filmmaker until they did a project specifically for this festival, and that gave them
Wow.
the acting bug or the filmmaking bug. So there's a lot of emotion from people there that were really, loving this festival. The festival took place in a hotel. They had 2 very large screening rooms. One had probably 400 seats, the other probably had 150. There were screenings that I was attending that had maybe 150, 200 people in the audience. I think my screening, Disregard My Silent Film, was on the opening night at 9:30 p.m. It was unopposed, which I was happy about. The downside for my screening personally, and I didn't take it personally, but just what happened was there was a screening of a local feature film right before ours, which a lot of people attended, right? Um, but I was kind of hoping, okay, well, these people just watched their film. Maybe they'll stick around for the horror film block. Not really. Most of those people went out in the hallway and had their like chat and meet and drink and celebration of their own film, and didn't really stick around for the horror film. So when my
That's a
horror film,
bummer.
yeah, and buddy, I've learned that with filmmakers sometimes there is kind of a level of, oh, let's show up for our film and leave. You know what I mean? So that's another downside of film festivals. A lot of actors and actresses are kind of noted for that. Well, let's when's our film playing? We'll go and watch that, and then we'll
Well,
take
it's you
off.
know what it is. I think it comes down to just film festival etiquette. And if you go back in the back issues of our show, we did an episode on film festivals, and that's definitely something that there's a little bit of etiquette. Anyone out there who's going to a film festival, yes, I know it's all about me, me, me in this day and age, but it is respectable or respectful, I should say, to stick around and watch the other filmmakers' movies too. You never know. You might learn something. You might see an actor you really like. You might see a writer, director that you really like. So, yeah, that's too bad, Mike, that they didn't stick around.
Some people did. Like I said, Tommy, I mean, still probably 30 to 40 people were watching my movie, and most of them were other horror people. And I think that the block of film that my piece or our piece, the Disregard team's piece, was in, it was a very good block of films, and the production values were really high for these short horror films, and I was happy to be among them. And the other filmmakers were very supportive, and the Q&A was great. And then the Saturday of the festival, I volunteered to be a host, a monitor for a Q&A, and I got to see some really cool films in that group, and I got to be the guy that kind of asked the questions, and I'm very comfortable in that situation. So in that regard, Tommy, I did enjoy it. um, but the other thing, buddy, is sometimes you have to take a self evaluation. I think with this pandemic stuff, my social skills have decreased. I've become very appreciative and able to do stuff like this with you, or my own YouTube presence with talking to a camera or a phone or whatever. But actually dealing with real life people, especially strangers, danger stranger, buddy, I think I've lost my
Oh,
knack.
don't say that. Don't say that, bud. I think you're just as good as ever. Uh, I don't know, man. I think you're a very personable cat, and I think I'm sure people enjoyed you, and I'm sure it was a nice experience to be the host for a little while. And you always ask really insightful questions and things like that. So I'm sure you were a big addition to that evening, and that's really cool, man. Well, overall, it sounds like Austin could have been a little bit more of just an easy city to deal with due to the overpopulation, but it sounds like overall it was fun. Let me ask you this. If you had it back, would you do it again?
Well, I guess I'll find out next year, buddy. If we did an episode here on Many Keys, the Heartbreak Monologue. I entered that for 2025. If it does get accepted, I'll make that decision at that time. I probably would go just because it would be the final Austin Revolution Film Festival, and
Mine as
Jamie.
well, right?
Yeah, and the host of this thing, Jamie Christopher, and his wife and their dog Orbit. I mean, the film festival has a mascot, Tommy. It's their
Shout
dog.
out to Orbit the dog.
So, and
Jesus Christ.
the dog, by the end of the festival, the dog is exhausted because the dog is like hosting and he's signing his paw print
It's a
on
lot.
people's programs, and
It's a lot for
he's
Orbit.
he's got to get petted by everybody's got to pet the dog. But yeah, I did have a good time, Tommy. And like I said, man, sometimes it's really the mood you go into these things with. And like I said, I went in there with some bad news from about my buddy, and so maybe my own emotional radar was off. But I love the
Well,
road trip, man. I love driving out there and driving back. That's one thing about driving, is when you see these different locations throughout the country. It is a big country, and you see different things, and I like that experience quite a bit.
it's always nice to get in your car and just take a ride, especially when you're talking about driving through the South. I had a blast down there, and again, like I said, I think that it's a wonderful part of the country to visit. It's a beautiful part of the country to work in. The people are great, and I can't wait to get back. We're going to wrap things up here. We really do appreciate everybody for watching along with us. We're sorry we took a little break, but we are back. We don't have any plans to take any long hiatuses anytime soon. We're locked in. We're just going to be editing a lot. And I'm excited. I'm excited to keep this show going. And I really want to thank everyone. Scott, have an awesome time at that show if I don't talk to you. Scott says, love to hear that, man. I think in the year that I've followed you, I can tell how much work you put in the craft. Can't wait to check it out. Thank you, brother. This is all I do, man. Really, making movies and feeding my cats are really my two main functions in life. Kim says, "Oh, so happy for you. So great when you know you did an when you know what an incredible job you've done." Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate that, and I'm not trying to sound like Mr. Humble, but it couldn't have been done without this phenomenal crew that I got a chance to work with, and this great cast, and just so many great people that, not to sound corny, but like they believed in me, and that feels really good. When people believe in you, you're capable of doing far more greater things than you ever imagined with that little bit of positive reinforcement. And I got a lot of that down there. Also noticed my uncle Don Johnson was in the collective. Oh yeah, Uncle Don was in that movie for sure. Uncle Don is a real American treasure. I did a short film in 2020, took inspiration from British actor Tom Hardy for my role. Tom Hardy's the man. Who doesn't love Tom Hardy? I think that was a good inspiration to pull from. Um, Laza liked, shared the episode. Thank you, brother. He also likes Mikey's T-shirt, which says "Trek yourself before you wreck yourself," which is very funny. Um, Guys, again, Mike said it earlier, but we're really trying to grow this show, especially now that we're back. Anything you can do to share and just tell people that, like, we love these two clowns that talk about movies every week. That would be me and Mike. We really appreciate anything you can do to get us an extra subscription on the YouTube channel, to get us a like, a share, anything. It's all so valuable. So help us out. Let's grow this great community that we've built here. And we're going to see you next week. Mike and I are going to spend a little time discussing a fun topic for next week. We're going to make it a surprise. Maybe we'll post about it. Maybe I'll drop something down on my story. And again, as always, I just want to remind you, this is an open kind of relationship that we have with you, in the sense that you can ask us anything. You can ask us all your movie questions, film questions. You want some advice on a weird situation that you're in involving movies or movie personnel, drop it down in the comments and we'll get to it next week. I promise you that.
And Tommy, please, because we had a person, I'm trying to remember if it was Scott or someone else. One of our viewers suggested like 3 or 4 show topics that we did. So was that Scott or was that another viewer?
I
But
think it might have been Scott that gave us
yeah,
some show topics. But yeah,
yeah,
if you got any ideas for topics, we're always, Mike and here's the deal. Mike and I are never going to run out of topics to talk about. There's so many. Film is such a vast topic to dive into. There are so many subtopics. We're not going to run out, but we want to tailor make the show for you because you're the people that watch it and follow along. So if there's something that you're not sure of that you've always wanted to know, maybe Mike and I can help you out, or share some of the knowledge that we've gathered up over the years with you on that topic. So put it down in the comments and we will get into it next week. Thanks so much, everybody. Have an awesome week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern on And Action, episode 71, coming at you. Bye, guys.